You only have one chance to make a good first impression. A first impression is a lasting impression. A few short weeks ago, many of you got your first impression of Ridley, and each day since then has enriched your perspective and feelings of the school. From your time at camp, to singing Lord of the Dance for the first time in chapel, to your very first snake dance. Each day, you are adding to your Ridley experience. Despite all of the good and bad that may take place during your tenure here, you will always remember your first impression of Ridley. For some of you, that was only 3 weeks ago, and for others longer. An event as overwhelming as your first couple of days at Ridley will stay with you for a lifetime. I know, I will always remember my first day at Ridley. It was a big adjustment for me, because I was not only getting used to my new school, but I was getting used to a new area, as my family had just moved from Toronto to Niagara Falls. I went from living 20 minutes away from incredible places, such as the Eaton Center and the CN Tower, to 20 minutes to the nearest grocery store. Things going on in the world during my first months at Ridley were the Da Vinci Code had just been released to wide acclaim, not the cool movie with Tom Hanks, I'm talking about the book. And President Bush had just been elected to his second term as president. And my beloved Toronto Maple Leafs had just come off a strong showing in that year's Stanley Cup playoffs. My first day at Ridley was September 6th, 2005. Evidently, a lot has changed since then. Since I started here way back in grade 5, I'm considered a lifer. This is my 8th and, knock on wood, my final year at Ridley. Over the past 8 school years, the Ridley community has changed drastically, and the overall impression of the school is much different. Although I've been here for 8 years, first impressions have not stopped affecting me since then. Perhaps the most influential first impression of my time at Ridley took place on my very first day of grade 9, my 5th year at Ridley. After 4 years in lower school, I was anxious for my time in upper school, at least until I met my roommate. Call me old-fashioned, but I was always taught that when you meet a person for the first time, in order to make a good first impression, you should stand up straight, look them in the eyes, firmly shake their hand, and formally introduce yourself. To me, this was common knowledge, and this was just how things were done. Clearly, my roommate had not gotten the memo. I walked into my room and saw my new roommate sitting at the desk. He turned and looked at me, and as I extended my hand and began to introduce myself, he slapped my hand out of the way and embraced me in a very awkward bear hug. And when he did this, he said in almost a shouting tone, "Hi, I'm Big Daddy K. I'm going to be your roommate for the year." I was not impressed. This unique introduction was followed by a knock on Mr. Park's door and a request for a room change. My request was denied, and the first few months of school went by with me finding more reasons to want a roommate other than Big Daddy. Some people say that when you dislike someone, you amplify their flaws. So you could only imagine the problems I had with Daddy. He was loud, he talked too much, he was messy, he would never respect my personal space, he'd walk around the room in his underwear, and come on, he called himself Daddy. But you know what? The worst part of all, he loved me. Whenever he'd come back from football, he'd greet me with a huge smile and give me a big, sweaty, awkward hug. You know when your grandmother hugs you for like 30 seconds too long, and you're just standing there awkwardly? That's what it was like every day. I knew it was going to be a long year. At this point in the story, I would like to tell everyone who may not have put their best foot forward in the first few weeks of school, I'm sorry. Your roommate probably already hates you. Your teachers are probably hoping that you'll switch into another class. And your housemaster has probably already sent emails to your parents asking you not to come back after Thanksgiving. Okay, that may be an over-exaggeration. Though, despite the poor first impression, not all is lost. Like your first impression of Ridley, which may have been overwhelming and a bit of a shock, each day you become more comfortable and begin to actually enjoy your time here. The same can be done with someone you've had a poor first impression with. It's never too late for a fresh start. There's no telling what may happen once you open your mind. A grand gesture is not necessary, but if you simply make an effort every day, you will definitely make an impression on the people around you. In the example of Big Daddy, the moment I began to soften towards him was at the cross-country dinner. I've been called up to receive an award, and naturally, everyone in the audience applauded politely, except for one member of the dinner party. Daddy had decided to give me a standing ovation, and during my walk back to my table, the only noise in the entire dining hall was Big Daddy applauding and screaming, "Go Pace!" I was extremely embarrassed, but it was just impossible to dislike someone after they showed so much pride and joy in my accomplishment. That night was the beginning of a beautiful friendship, because believe it or not, today, Big Daddy K, or Kier, how he's more commonly referred to, is one of my best friends. If I let the poor first impression get the better of me, I would have missed out. My challenge to all of you is to change those bad first impressions, because there's no telling on what you might miss out on if you give up at the start. This is both with your peers and school life. Make friends, get involved, and be a part of this school. There are days where you'll feel like you'll be stuck at Ridley for an eternity. But from experience, I know that by getting involved, joining a team, and making friends, you'll have much more fun, and your time here will be much easier and far more enjoyable. I know this, because these past 8 years have gone by